Here's a man who's interested in collecting famous works of art. So he wanders around galleries and places where pictures are sold. And he sees one that he likes, that he wants. But it's very expensive. But he wants it enough to pay the outrageous price for it, so he buys this painting, which is by some great artist of the past. Takes the painting home, puts it up on the wall of his house, and then he thinks about it. He thinks about the money he paid for it, the price he paid. He thinks of the glory of having that great masterpiece on the wall of his home. He thinks of all his friends who are going to come, and he's not going to say a word, of course. He's going to let it be a surprise to them, and he can hardly wait till he has friends over to look at the picture on the wall. And it occupies his mind a good deal. Everything about the painting. How proud he is of it. Maybe he'll get interviewed in the newspaper over it. So far, he's had what he calls, what he thinks is positive, happy, constructive thoughts about the painting. One day a friend comes over, and the friend suggests that the painting is a counterfeit. You know, you've read in the papers about skilled artists who take the old master's paintings and reproduce them and sign the name of the Michelangelo or whoever and pass them off as original paintings. And this friend suggested that this was also a forgery, a fake. He didn't know, the friend said, but it looks to me like it is. Now the owner of the painting begins to think in a different way, doesn't he? He begins to think in a different way toward his acquisition. He begins to worry. Well, is it or isn't it? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's real after all. Am I not echoing your emotions? Of course. Maybe that man is real. Maybe that woman is real after all. Real excited. He begins to think of the exorbitant price he pays for it, and he thinks, oh, if it's a fake, I've been taken, I've lost all that money. How foolish of me, maybe. So he's tormented by doubt. Have you ever noticed that doubt torments you? If you know one way or another, when it's over one way or another, the doubt seems to go away a little bit. But here he was right caught in the middle of it. On and on and on. Now he has negative thoughts about what used to give him what he called pleasurable thoughts, a pleasurable life, pleasurable ownership. His thoughts are turning dark and miserable. He finally decides that the only thing to do to put an end to his suffering, the only thing to do is to find out once and for all whether it's a fake or not. See the conflict already he's in? What if it turns out that it is, and he has to face the fact that he's been a very gullible human being? Yet he can't go on anymore this way. And you, here in this room and listening to this talk, have not reached that point yet. You're still in this back and forth stage. You're wondering about your life, aren't you? You think about your life in 1 minute. Look what I have that's going to be displayed before the world. What is it? The music you compose, or your youth and beauty, or whatever it is. You've got all these things to display before the world, and you're in doubt about them, aren't you? You are compelled to think about them. 1 minute you think it's favorable, like the man. And the next minute you begin to worry that maybe it isn't real after all, and you don't know. Why don't you put an end to the conflict? It's so easy to put an end to it, and you won't do it. You know what he did? The owner of the picture did. He took it to an expert. And the expert says, yes, this is a fake. Not real at all. You have been swindled, and you have been swindled by your own greed in getting that at what you thought was a bargain price. Is there one of you here that's willing to go through that? I'll tell you what will happen if you do. You won't have to think about yourself anymore. Well, did he not go through the pain and the shame of seeing that it was a forgery? Once it is seen and he got rid of the picture as the fake that it was, what more is there to think about in any way at all? Think of your opposites' thoughts toward you and your life. You've got your comfortable little world. You've got your bank account, or you've got your future, or you've got your man, or you've got your woman. And most important of all to you, you have your dreams. Let me tell you what dreams you cherish most of all. Ones of conflict. Do you know why when that man had the picture at the start and it was first suggested to him that it was a fake? Do you know that he enjoyed his torment? Do you know that that's called a false feeling of life? Do you know that if you think toward yourself and you suspect that you're a fake and you don't face it altogether, you will fall in love with your own agony back and forth. Am I real or am I fake? I'll settle it for you. You're fake. If you suffer, you are a phony. Period. Right? Try to get out of that. Look. When you toss out the painting, what is there to think about? Either good or bad, favorable, unfavorable. Your mind is free of it. You free of yourself? Or are you agonizingly tied to all these thoughts? And they don't stop, do they? You can't stop thinking about that fake called you, can you? You can't do it. Of course you can't. You can't ever stop thinking about fakery. It's compelling. And it rewards you in a very strange way. And that reward is called having the misery of a false belief in your own false identity, separate identity. You know, how strange. Human beings will endure any kind of misery, any kind of self-torment, as long as they can say, I am suffering. And you are doing just that. Now I said I'll tell you how to get rid of it. So simple. Get rid of the fake. You see, a fake has no, fake painting for example, has no real value at all in reality, right? A fake appears to have value, and guess who is giving it this spurious value? Your thoughts, yourself. You think about yourself and you think of some activity and you attribute value to it. You say, that is good. I'm such a nice person that I gave that gift to someone else. Or I'm such a terrible person because I really don't like those people I live with as much as I pretend to do, and I wish I could get out of there. But all the time, your mind is circulating and you are the center of the show. So now I want to ask you a question. Ooh, how profound. What connects you with this world that you live in? Now I'm talking about the physical world, yes, mountains and houses and automobile, and the psychological world, thoughts, what connects you with thoughts, other people's thoughts, for example. What connects you with other people? The question is, and I'll answer it, the question is, what connects you with everything outside of you? There's two ways, two connections. And one of them will drive you mad as you are driving yourself mad, like today, for example. And the one connection that has this heavy spirit and heavy faces, the one connection is thought. Are there not thoughts in your mind going out about what? Let's find out. Are there not thoughts in your mind going out into the world about your bank account, about your relatives, about some involvement? Do you not think about your religion? Do you not think about what you call God and what you call the future and what you call your relationship to something higher? Do you not merely think about it? Wouldn't you like to have rest from yourself? And all this scheming and all this planning and all this wondering and all this hope that maybe you'll turn out to be real after all, you never will find it. You will never find that assurance, because as long as you think, you're fake. Talk about energy wastage. Aren't you going to stop tonight to cease to waste your life in thinking about yourself when there's no real self there at all to think about? I'm trying to get a point of enormous vitality over to you. All you know is thinking, and you assume that that's all that exists for you, and that is why you go on and on and on. I'll tell you, whether you know it or not, that you don't have to continue to think yourself into existence every day, every second. I'll further tell you that you can disconnect yourself, you can disconnect your thoughts from that exterior world, disconnect yourself so there is no longer any such thing as a problem or a difficulty or a crisis or a pain for you coming from that other world. See, here's you, and there's the world. In a certain sense, they're divided. In another sense, they're not. Here you are being pained by the world because you think about it in relation to a non-existent person here. If you drop the non-existent person, the fake painting, it would not project thoughts out into the world which connect wrongly with that situation, with that wife, with that husband, with that bank account. And when the thoughts do not go out and wrongly connect, where's your difficulty? That is your fear. There will be no difficulty, because if the difficulties go, so do you, because they're the same thing. Don't kid me that you want to get rid of your sorrows. Don't kid me you want to get rid of this tension and this pain that you have, and this nervous looking around at life. Don't kid me. You've got it, and it's got you, and you are not going to sever that relationship because you fear that there's nothing else beside it. I'll tell you. I am telling you right now that there is a life, there is a way to go through this world every minute of the day. There is a way which you don't know anything about because you can only think about it, and thought distorts it, therefore you can't understand it. Thought stands in the way of you understanding who you really are and what you can really have, what can authentically be yours. Now I said there's a connection of thought from your supposed you going out into the world, and when it goes out it mangles everything. How many male-female relationships have you had? You gentlemen, how many ladies in your life? You ladies, how many men in your life? And you fought. You quarreled. You couldn't get along. All because there were two thought people having a relationship, each thinking the other was real and that you were real, two imaginary people talking. Two imaginary people, even two imaginary people fighting with each other. And you believed in the fighting because you wanted to believe in you, because again, they are the same thing. You wonder why you go through it every day. It's because you create it every day. See, it has to be said. Your mind is nothing but a machine unattended by higher intelligence. Just like you park your car out in the street and turn the motor on and walk away from it. It's a waste of energy, isn't it? The car is not going anywhere. It's not doing anything constructive. Oh yes, by the way, you leave that car out in front there and walk away from it unattended, so it has no intelligence guiding it, and it will wear out. You're pretty worn out already, aren't you? Some of you are fairly young yet, and you don't act that way. You're wasting the natural energy you have, and you don't know what is happening. I'll tell you how to know what is happening. If you're tired enough of being captured by wrong thoughts toward the painting, toward your life, if you're tired of wondering whether you're a fake or not, well, I already told you, you can settle it right now that you are. You don't know anything at all. You read all those books. And you talk so marvelously, so intellectually. And when your head hits the pillow at night, you've got headaches and nightmares and you can't go to sleep, right? You're so brilliant, you can't sleep at night. Remember the man who bought the painting wouldn't face the possibility that it might be all wrong. And one reason for that is it's called a false sense of shame. How many of you have ever done dumb things in your life? How many of you still do? How many of you did one not more than an hour ago? 10 minutes? If I spent all that money for a fake picture and other people find out, I will be disgraced. You're already a disgrace and don't know it. I will be shamed. They'll think I'm stupid. See? You don't care whether you're stupid or intelligent. You just want people to think you're intelligent. We build up this image of how we should be, of how we should appear, and lose our lives in trying to protect the falsehood. And how about this? Not only are we so concerned lest other people find us out, but worse yet, we think, what if I should find myself out? What if I should have to admit that I was so stupid that I went down to the bank, drew that money out, and then for all practical purposes, I threw the money away? I, who's supposed to be so financially and economically intelligent, who knows how to handle my... What if I find out how dumb, how gullible I am? I won't be able to take it. I've told you. Why don't you take it? Why don't you see that you've spent your life up to this point, even now, tonight, that you've spent your life for something that is worthless, called a fake self, called an invented personality. The machine keeps running, wasting energy, making a lot of racket, going nowhere, and you don't even know what's happening, and you don't want to know, lest all your beautiful idealistic dreams and imaginations about you should have to be tossed out the window. And I know why you fear that. you're afraid you're tossing yourself out the window. How many times have I told you? How many times have I told you that you are not your angers, you are not your stupidities, you are not your past, you are not your self-protections, you are not your secret envies of other people. Now, if you are not those, wouldn't it be sheer delight to toss them out the window and close the window tight and never look out again? I know, and I can tell you what will happen if you do that. And you listen to me now. What will happen that instead of thought connecting you with life, with your bank account, with other people, instead of thought being the connection, there will be the connection of the Spirit of truth. The Spirit of reality, of real wisdom, inside of you, can walk down the street and go to the bank and conduct your business down there. You can go to the grocery store and shop. It can meet this man or meet this woman. It can do everything that goes on in this world, everything that is normal and right. It can do everything, and listen to this. The Spirit of truth will be so in charge of you in relationship to this world that you will not have anymore have anything to do with your own life. You will be carried. You will be guided. There'll be no difficulties at all because you're not there anymore with your thought self to create them. Don't you want to explore what we're talking about all the way to the very end of it so that you can say, I see. I see what I have to do. I have to slow down my mind so that it doesn't recreate that person who is anxious over the bank account, the career, the relationship. I have to slow it down so it doesn't recreate it every minute, which is driving me crazy. I'm describing you, haven't I? And you're willing to do it. You're willing to find out what happens as a result of you no longer tying yourself to this world with thought, ideas, opinions, attitudes. I know what will happen. I know for a while you'll wonder what is going on inside of you. What is this different feeling that I have? And you'll go down to a business place and conduct your usual business, whatever it is. Or you'll go down to a place where there are a lot of people maybe gathered for a social occasion, and you'll be in the room with 100 other people, and they're having their snacks at the snack bar. And you're wandering around and you're talking with them. And right while you're doing that, walking around the table, and you have a glass of root beer in your hand, while you're walking around, you are sensing something different. And one thing you're sensing is the absence of the way you usually behave to the world out there. And you think, a few years ago, I would have come into that room with just 2 words on my mind. Those 2 words being, I want. And then you'd look around the room and you'd find out what you want. And you men, you'd put your eyes on that pretty girl over by the punch bowl, and you'd accidentally on purpose wander over and strike up a conversation with you, and already you're in torment, aren't you? You know you're going to fight with her if you talk to her and go on with it. You're going to be tormented in any way because you are thinking your life. And then that man comes over with a business proposition, and you get all excited because you have no sense at all about money. or about finances. All you can do is get excited over making a lot of money. And the man comes over, and a few years ago he would be able to draw you into that false business situation. He would have taken your money. But now something different is happening. To your astonishment, when that girl is over there by the punch bowl, or when that man comes over you with a business offer, to your astonishment, you see both of them as entirely different than you did years ago. A certain part of you would see that woman with lust, with desire, all covered up with smooth words to her, trying to impress her how nice you are, and you're not nice at all. And the businessman, you'd say, tell me more, give me some papers to take home to read about it. You get all excited. And this is how you lost yourself every day for years. You lost yourself and thought about the money and about the woman. But now something different is happening, right? You see the girl, you see the same girl, you see the same businessman. And you see them in an entirely different way. You begin to see through that businessman's greed. And you begin to see through that woman, too, that she's got something seriously wrong with her, that she's covering up with her pretty dress and with her beads and all that. You look around the whole room, and everybody appears different to you. Why? Because you are different. You've got some of your stupid greeds out of the way. You've got some of your desperation out of the way, the desperation starting with I want, and then you say, if I get it, then I'll go out of here having had a successful night. All that is gone. Little by little, the Spirit of truth is with you when you go into that big room of 100 people. And you're very aware of yourself walking around. You know you're there physically. If you make a turn to the right as you go down a little aisle somewhere there, you know that you're turning to the right. And you look over and you see 4 or 5 people all talking together, and they've all got these dull, vacant looks on their faces, and they're all excited and they're chattering like that, and they're nervous, talking about some news event. Well, should we do this or should... You see the whole world in front of you because at one point in your life you saw that exactly same kind of world inside of you, and you said, I want nothing more to do with this counterfeit painting. A mere picture of me was all it was, and thank heaven. Thank heaven that something came along to begin to knock the nonsense out of me. The nonsense of believing in myself. The word belief can become quite a trap, can it? You're told to believe in yourself. But, the man tried to convince himself of that for a long time, to believe in the painting, and look what happened to him. He couldn't sleep. Oh, yes. By the way, when he was fighting his indecision over that painting on the wall, he was a very unpleasant human being. He was very irritable, crabby. He would snap at people. And for every angry word that he said outward, he had 1,000 angers inside of him that he had to suppress because he wanted to please people and make them think that he was okay. Are you doing that? Are you going around trying to make other people think you're okay? You know you're not. You're fighting a losing battle. You're not going to win. You're spending all this energy so that people will be pleased with you, will be impressed by you, and all the time, deep down inside, you've been told by something inside of you that you just sense so far that there's something dreadfully wrong with you. And yet you can't stop, can you? You can't stop going around giving people gifts so that they'll like you and so on. You can do one thing. You can go to the expert and get help. You suspect the painting is a fake, but you don't know. You're no expert on it. You don't know paintings. You don't know Dutch paints and canvases from the 17th century or whatever. You don't know anything about those things. There's someone who does. There's something that knows all about you as you're seated here tonight. Knows everything. Knows all about your thoughts. Even the way you reacted to the talk tonight. Could see it and understand it. That expert with a capital E was referred to a little bit earlier as the Spirit of truth. Now there's such a word, and with this we'll stop. There's a word called invitation. Instead of trying to protect what is hounding you, harassing you, injuring you, why don't you try something different? Right in the middle of all your fighting of what is real, of what is right, look, please do it right in the middle of the fight. That's all you can do, but it's legitimate. Right in the middle of the storm inside of you, put out your invitation. You don't know who you're talking to. You don't know God, so how can you communicate with God? Send it out. God knows where He is. You don't have to know. You send the invitation out for help, for guidance, for light, for revelation, and it will come. See, this part depends on you. The invitation depends on you. The answer to that invitation depends on truth, and you won't be failed. You will hear an answer, and you will go through these experiences that we've talked about. Wherever you go, you'll be sensing something different about you, which is the replacement of the Spirit taking the place of your old nature. And then you'll understand what it means to not live your own life. And then you'll understand that that is the only real, beautiful, and everlasting life that there is. You can start life all over, and you can start it over many times a day. Now let's find out what it means to start life freshly. You go through the day unconsciously. You don't know that you blurted out that strange remark. You don't know that you carelessly bumped into someone in a busy place. You don't know that you're walking in a depressed, defeated way with a face to match. You don't know what is going on with your own life. Now, this is the way it is with the world. People do not know what's going on, inwardly or outwardly. Consequently, everyone bumps into each other and everyone cries in pain. Starting life over is a very definite spiritual exercise and proceeds as follows. You understand what it means to stay awake during your day. That means to be a detached observer of what you are doing at all times. And even know that you raise your hand and touch your forehead like that, you know you're doing that. You know the sound of your voice when you speak. You know where you are physically. You can see yourself in relationship to other people. But most of all, starting life over starts with you catching yourself in a false, unnatural, unnecessary act. Where you see that the counterfeit painting, that is, a mere picture of yourself, was operating in relationship to that other person, perhaps. Now, when you catch yourself in the act, say, of saying something untrue, bluffing in order to impress someone, for example, you say something that's part of the fake painting, false talking, say, and you walk away from that person, and all of a sudden it occurs to you that you were indeed a faker in what you said to him. Have you ever done that? Have you ever said fake things and you went away? Whew. All right, now listen. You have caught yourself in the act of being a phony. Great. You're no longer protecting your investment in that false painting. You've seen how costly it is to continue to call the fake real. Now you've caught it. The very catching of it is a moment of insight, understanding, consciousness, awareness, call it what you want. That very insight into your fakery of a few seconds ago is the beginning of understanding what it means to start life all over, and you just did it in a small way. See, to start life all over, to begin life fresh, means that you are no longer living your usual, traditional, self-defeating life. For that very split moment when you said, "There I go again," making those stupid bluffing remarks, that moment of understanding your fakery is the beginning of a new life for you. Because something in you now knows that it was wrong to blurt that out, that false statement. And you further understand that to blurt out false statements is wrong for you. You can feel the wrongness of it. You wasted energy, you bluffed, and you just know that it's wrong. Now, when you know something is really wrong for you, all by itself it falls away because you are no longer clutching it as you did before. This is a world of clutchers who hang on to their foolishnesses, hang on to their deceptions. They're clinging to them. Your very awareness of what happened when you were talking to that person gives you the urge to just let it go and not do it again. And when you have that spiritual urge, which it is, it begins to fall away. Now, you have to do this over and over and over again because those chains of habit are so heavy and thick, aren't they? And you will do it again, won't you? In a different circumstance, another person, you'll do it again. But now the sentry is awake, and he's watching what's happening. And you do it again. All right, you walk away. There it goes again. There I did it again. All right. But at that moment, every moment that you say that, when you see this, you are starting life over, and that the next time that habit comes along, it will just be that much weaker. No more than that. See, you want it to be altogether gone, altogether weak, nothing there to have power over you at all. So over and over again, you start life over by not remaining unconscious and recreating the false move that you did before. You see, you're ceasing to recreate the mechanical force that blurted that out, and something else takes its place, which I call the spirit of truth. That begins to come in, and little by little, it keeps you awake, so that when you go into that situation, it keeps you awake, and you can even see the temptation to come up and start to fake again. But you've caught it way down there before it comes up and takes over your tongue and your mind. More and more, you'll know that you can live your life over right now if you stay awake and see what it means. And what it means is to let the Spirit guide your life and not think your life away. The citizens of a certain big town woke up one morning and they saw a big ad in the paper. And the paper's headline, the ad said, "Discover Gold." And the headline caught their attention, of course, because everybody's interested in gold. Then they read the following descriptions of the ad, which was, "Come to our lecture at a certain time and place in a few days, and you will learn how to go up into the mountains and out in the deserts and discover gold for yourself. You might get rich." Oh, an awful lot of people got excited about the ad about them personally finding gold. So the time came for the meeting one night, 8 o'clock, in a great big hall. And the place was jam-packed. And they charged $20 for that one lecture. $20 for one lecture. Had an overflow crowd. All the eager people came in with it. They had their little notebooks and they were all excited about learning how to go up in the mountains and find lost gold mines and raw gold. And presently the lecturer came out and he was very well dressed and looked good, impressive in his personal appearance. He came out. He started to give the lecture about gold. And first of all, let's look at his personality. He's very witty, told lots of funny stories, and very clever in the use of his words. Everything right as far as his human personality was concerned as a speaker. Impressed the men, and the women kind of half flirted in their minds with him because he was nice looking and all that. So he gave his lecture. And he started talking about gold. And he started off with a history of it, how ancient accounts on hieroglyphics told about discovering gold back in the old days. Then he went from the history to biographies of certain men who had discovered gold in certain places around the world, including the American West, and become rich and famous through finding gold. He's talking about gold all the time now. And then he got to another phase of it, which was gold prices, how there's certain city has them a certain rate, another city, and how you could buy and trade gold and make a lot of money. On and on with various facts about gold, where to store it in a safe place, everything. And he had slides, pictures that he set up on a little platform there that he could illustrate the lecture with, showed pictures of famous gold mines of the Old West. Oh, people, they didn't miss a word. The audience was so excited about it. Lecture went on for a couple hours. And at the end of the time, he said thank you and good night. And they went and they had books for sale. They went and people bought a lot of books. And everyone applauded thunderously, all thousands of them, his lecture. And everyone applauded thunderously, all thousands of them, his lecture. And they all went home. And one man went home, and something was troubling him as he got in his car out in the parking lot and drove home, but he didn't know what it was. It was trying to get through into his consciousness, but it didn't succeed. So when he got home, he wandered around a little bit and sat down on his couch. All of a sudden, it struck him. And he was the only one of those several thousand people who ever had this thought. All of a sudden, he knew what was trying to get through, and here's how it came out with words. That lecturer never got to the point. The title of it was How to Discover Gold. He did everything but tell them how to discover gold. Didn't he? He told them about famous men, biographies of how they stumbled across it while prospecting, the prices of gold in Zurich and Berlin. No one ever found out except that one man that he didn't get to the point of it, which was for them personally to find gold for themselves. Now let me tell you, that lecturer knew that himself. He knew all along he didn't get to the point, and he knew that only one person out of 5,000 might even see through him. His psychology was pretty good, wasn't it? He knew what to do with sheep. Catch their attention. Promise them one thing and get them in and get their money and get their applause, and tell them something else and they won't know. They won't see the difference. Sheep don't think. They just follow and they bleat. Now, why wouldn't he tell them how to find gold? What would be the matter with it? Why didn't he go into it? Why didn't he get to the point? He had a lot of experience with audiences. He understood them. He knew how to get them. He knew what they were like. He knew what they really wanted in spite of what they say. He knew that no one in that audience of thousands would ever actually get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and throw your shovels and picks and camping tents into your car and drive out to the mountains and spend a long, long time in hard work looking around for gold. They're not going to do that. They want the gold to come to them. They don't want to do anything to earn anything. They want a handout. He knew that. And he also knew that the people themselves, right in their own mind, even if he was to mention vaguely about them hunting gold themselves, going into personal action, they'd resent him. You push people too far, and what they don't want to do that is right for them, and the little sheep get mad, and they turn against you. Now that lecture had one motive in mind, one only: self-interest. Why do you suppose he's giving those lectures? Not to tell people how to find gold, only one thing, but to get gold for himself in the form of entrance fees. Get what he wants. Now listen to this. The whole world is doing that to you, to the rest of the world, one man to another man. They put out all these books and all these lectures and all this personal counsel. They know that people really don't want to change. They know that the one thing people fear the most is for you to get personal with them, to tell them to go into action, to quit your fooling around, to stop lying to yourself. It happens in every family. It happens in every government bureau. It happens in every church. All the leaders of all these organizations, the head of every family. Where are you going to find a man who is honest? Where are you going to find someone who says, I don't care whether you come to the lecture or not, here are the facts? You want spiritual gold? You can have it. If you want it badly enough, and I'll tell you how to do it. And a true man, a true woman, a true book. Oh, what they're going to do to you. Oh, are they going to get personal with you? As if truth cares about the consequences of expressing itself in this world. As if it cares whether this man accepts and the next man doesn't. Oh, the purity of truth. Thank heaven for its purity, that it always remains what it is, regardless of what happens when it goes out into the world. When is the last time you heard a lecture, you heard a sermon, you read a book, or you heard personal counsel in which you were told that you are a sheep, that you're lost, that you have an enormous amount of concealed violence in you? When's the last time out in the world there? Before coming here, you never ran across it. You never saw it. Because the whole world is dedicated to keeping you exactly as it is. People know, the leaders, the writers, the religionists, they all know one thing. What they want from the sheep. Would you sometime go home after walking around the world a little bit, after reading the newspaper, go home and sit down on your couch and just ponder what you ran into out there. Look at the advertising alone. You read 1,000 advertising signs and ads in the paper in one day, don't you? You run across them. Did you ever see an ad that said, there's something very seriously wrong with you, you are very sick, and unless you wake up, you're going to degenerate even more? Did you ever see an ad that says, all you know is hatred, and all your talk about love is pure hypocrisy? You sit down on your couch and see how utterly rare it is to see even the smallest bit of truth, so that you practically fall off the couch because all of a sudden the consciousness floods into you of what this world is really like, which means what each individual is really like. You will see how every individual doesn't want to present himself individually. He wants to hide out in that club, in that religious group, in that organization, in that pressure group. The last thing a human being will do will walk out and stand all by himself and say, look at me, you're right. Everything you said, speaking to a source of truth, everything you said about me is absolutely right. Show me what to do next. And incidentally, the answer to that would be to do nothing at all. Don't you dare try to solve the problem that you are to yourself. Don't you lift a finger to do anything. If you do, you'll be like the world. The world that reads about the biographies of men who became rich by finding gold. You'll think about gold and you'll think about spiritual things. You'll think about them. Instead of being spiritual, you'll have what you call spiritual thoughts, which are really religious thoughts. Do you understand the point I just made? You must never, never try to save yourself. If you do, it proves that you start with the illusion that you have a self to save, and you don't. There is no one there. But because you think there is, you try to save that fictitious man or woman, and you build it. How many of you have hard hearts? I know you do. I know why you're hard too. You're so afraid someone is going to hurt you again, hit you again. And you look around suspiciously out at that world. You know how you were hurt by your parents, and by your brother and sister, and everyone else. You look out at the world and you're afraid they're going to hit you again. And every time you do that, you build the fictitious self. Oh, that is what is called living with a very neurotic, self-tormenting self. Get the point. If you do anything to rescue yourself, you never will rescue your real self. You only keep the artificial personality in place, walk around with it, which is always thinking, as we said last night, driving yourself crazy with all these mad thoughts. You can, instead of that, do something different, which is called seeing through yourself. Seeing through the trick that you have played on yourself, that you have permitted to be played. You see, the trick was given to you in early years by very vicious and sick people who smiled at you when they gave you advice and told you to join them and demanded that you behave the way they want you to behave. All these came into your mind, and you took these as right simply because someone said so. You know how suggestible children are? Now look, someone may not be able to suggest to you that it's better to pay $5 for a loaf of bread than $1. They may not be able to do that because you have a certain amount of discernment in this world in everyday things. But I'll tell you, you're awfully childlike yet and don't see it. Here you are, 6 feet tall, a woman 5 feet 5 inches tall, grown-up man, a grown-up woman, and you're influenced by the last person who talks to you, right? Someone tells you something, and you either get excited or dismayed, and someone else comes along, and then you feel another way and another way. How easy it is to influence you. How easy it is to bend you because you're living from a false center in the first place. That is always at the mercy of outside influences. How desperate you are then to find someone, to find some group, some book, who will lie to you and say nothing but nice things to you, so that you won't be disturbed. I tell you, right now, you make it your vow right now, this morning, a little bit after 9. You make it your vow that you are going to make it as rough as you can on yourself from now on, instead of so easy. You hide out. You don't know what you're doing against yourself. Why don't you put yourself in a position where you'll be more disturbed? See, look. When you get personal with yourself, when you sense that you can't just go and hear lectures about gold and believe that they're valuable, when you understand that you have to go into action yourself, pick up the shovel and go out in the mountains and start digging. When you sense that and go into action a little bit, this means, spiritually speaking, that you are indeed getting very, very personal. For example, you go out and you got your pick and shovel, and you go out in those mountains and you dig. And you dig on Saturday and find nothing, on Sunday and find nothing, and Monday and throughout the week. Every day that you go out into the mountains and don't find gold, an idea will come to you, and that idea will be, personal failure. I wanted to find gold, and if I did find it, I'd be written up in the newspaper and be on television as the man who found the lost Dutchman mine. And I'll be wealthy and famous, and then I'll know who I am. But something is against me. I've worked a week, a month, and I haven't found anything. I'll tell you what to do. After a month of failure, you take your pick and shovel and just set them down a little bit and sit on a rock. You sit on a rock and you think, I have thought that I am a failure. And I see it very clearly because I haven't found gold. I'm a failure. You have to get the spiritual and the physical together as I'm presenting it to you. I must be a failure. Who on earth are you talking about? I'm a failure. You're crying. You're hateful. When you cry, you hate. Now get that personal fact into your mind. Every time you weep, you hate. The world won't bend to me. It won't let me find gold. You sit on that rock until you understand the folly of a self-conversation like that. until it occurs to you, and you'd better fall off the rock with the shock of it. Who am I talking about? Who is the me who's a failure? Here I've got all these thoughts going, you're a failure, you're a flop, and you have to go back and your wife is going to look. You come driving the driveway, she's going to look, and she's going to look expectant. Did you find gold? You know she's going to ask that. Did you find gold? And you're going to have to say no. And you picture it all in your mind. You're going to be ashamed. Switch to the inner, to the psychological, to the spiritual. People want to become spiritually successful. They want to say, I am a Christian. I know who God is. And you have millions and millions of psychopaths wrecking the world in the name of God. As long as you know who God is, you don't. You've got all the words and none of the music, none of the beauty of it. The only thing you're concerned with in getting gold, in getting a reputation for being successful anywhere in the world, the only thing you're concerned with is the retention of and the building of a delusion. I'm telling you, unless you listen to what I'm saying about the delusion of a personal self, you have no choice but to continue in your present ways, not continue in it, to let it get worse. This is the very heart of it, the very key, that there is no one really there that you have to be concerned with, that you have to think about, that you have to bolster, that you have to weep. Oh, I'm a failure. Who are you crying over? You want to cry. You want to be enraged so as to keep the illusion going that there's someone who has failed or someone who has found gold. See through it once and for all. You want to be a hero in the eyes of your husband or your wife. You want to be a hero. That means you want to run through your imagination the thought, my wife confirms me. I can't confirm myself. But if I find a little bit of gold and I lie and say, I'm going out, I found a little piece and I'm going out next week and I know I'm going to find $1 million, she'll get so excited. And at last you've made it. You've been a flop for 20 years financially. At last you're going to make it. I love you. I'm so proud of you. They both belong in the nut house. Right? You are so gullible. You don't want to be enlightened. What you want is to be entertained. You want to hear all those exciting facts about how other people succeeded in finding gold. And then you think, maybe I can duplicate that and find gold myself. The world wants to be entertained, not enlightened. And I'll give you a story of how it works. Here's an airplane, one of these big jetliners flying through the air, takes off at LaGuardia Airport and heads toward Europe. 2 hours out on the flight, here's these couple hundred passengers. You know how big these planes are. All of a sudden, 2 hours out, a man gets up out of his seat and stands up and starts doing some magic tricks. He has his card tricks and he has different things that appear and disappear. You know, entertaining the audience in the plane. And of course they all look. They don't know what else. People don't know. People don't know what to do with themselves. They have no life of their own. They can't sit there and work on themselves, for example. They can't sit there and watch their own thoughts. They can't even look out the window of the airplane and see the fishing boat down there and say, I had a certain reaction to that fishing boat. It associated with when I was 12 years old and I went out fishing with my father one time on a little fishing boat like that. I see what started off the association. People never do things like that. They want to be entertained, and anyone who comes along with a magic trick can get their attention, their grateful attention, so that they're distracted from their pain. So the magician stood up and did all these tricks for about 15 minutes. And at the end of the 15 minutes, he took all his little gadgets and put them in a bag, snapped the bag closed, set it back on the seat, and he reached inside here and he pulled out a gun. And he announced that the plane was now hijacked. And his cohorts came out from front and back, and they all whispered to each other that the pilot was now under instructions to fly to some other country. The plane was taken over while they were being entertained. Right? The world is offering you that in the place of realities. Nobody wants to stop. Now look, we said be personal. Will you allow these teachings here to get so personal that it hurts real bad? Not only that, not only so that it hurts terribly, but you will add something to that. When it hurts twice as bad because you've been conscious of someone saying that you're sound asleep and you thought you were so spiritual and awakened, and someone called you a religious hypocrite or just a plain old hypocrite, not only did it hurt terribly, but you became aware of the intense pain for the first time. So that you take your mind, you take the direction of your thinking off the entertainment that you create within yourself. For example, the entertainment of your eyes flashing back and screaming at someone who called you a hypocrite and saying, "Don't you dare call me a hypocrite again." See, that is your self-built-in entertainment, right? Why do you do that? Because you don't want to feel the pain intensely of the fact, which is a fact that you are a hypocrite and divided and in conflict. See? To be different, you have to do something different. Getting mad and then either running away, like not coming back to this class anymore, which all lost people do, by the way. All lost people leave this class in one way or another. They might even come several times and then leave. They either run away or, of course, they fight. Have you ever caught yourself being hostile toward anything you've heard in this room? Have you ever caught yourself in one degree or another resisting it? You remember the magician story then. And you connect yourself with it because you are the magician unseen by you. Anything you think, your old nature thinks, is better. You say anything is better than suffering from you calling me a hypocrite. If I have to destroy myself with anger and rage, I'll do that rather than face the fact, and you will destroy yourself with your anger. There is only a delusion living inside of you that gets hateful. You have called yourself with your own name. You have called yourself that delusion. You have said, "I am anger." And then when it seems to suit your self-interest, you hide it and you say, "I will not be angry the next time I meet someone. I will not show anger because it might cause me some kind of a disadvantage." And you've done this so many times that you've convinced yourself that you don't have fury and anger and rage in you. when you're going to break down? When are you going to break down? When are you going to let loose the enormous volcanic pressure that you have inside of you and start using it to put an end to it? Don't you know what you're doing to yourself? Don't you watch your own thoughts? Don't you see how terrified you are of that whole world out there? Who is terrified but something that is wrong in you that you refuse to face? You don't have to be scared of anyone or anything. You want to be because you prefer to have a scared self than freedom and everlasting life in another way. Something extremely drastic has to be done. You yourself, of yourself, are not capable of getting to this point of doing something utterly different with your nature. Your old nature is entirely too much for you. But you don't know that it's too much for you because you still have a pseudo, false, invented rescuer in thought which you think can or will do something for you. You big phony. You've never changed a thing. All you've done is suppress your anger. All you've done is hidden it. All you've done is pretend that it isn't there. All you've done is distracted yourself by watching the magicians of this world. There is absolutely no hope for any human being who prefers to lie about his condition instead of face it. Now there it is, simple as that. Therefore, there is no hope for the vast majority of human beings. The answer to the question as to whether there is hope for you resides with you. Here you're told, you can't hide out in that family. Of course you can get allies in that family. They'll lie with you because they're all liars themselves. They welcome your lies because they are liars. And you can huddle together and hate the world. You can continue to join the club or that devilish religious organization. And if you're with a devilish religious organization, what do you suppose that says about you? You're part of it. You want it. That's your nature. The choice lies with you. Now, you don't understand what that means. But I can give you instructions for eventually arriving at the point where you can begin to choose life instead of lifelessness. You can begin to choose. And here's the instructions. Very simple. You think they're complicated. They're not complicated at all. It's so simple you won't want to see them. The mixed up parts of you will reject them, and you'll nod your head and say, and then you won't do it. Here are the instructions. All of you who heard this talk here this morning, or who are listening to it on this tape, cassette tape, all of you must do the following. You must begin to put the discovery of these truths before everything else in your life. Before absolutely everything else. In order to do that, you must come to every single class that we have. And that's, of course, you have to work or something like that. There are legitimate reasons for not being here. But for every class you can come to, you should be here. If you fall away, you're sunk. If you can't be here, if you live on the other side of the country, for example, then you must do what you can do. Every day you must read the books, and you must listen to the tapes. And most of all, you must go into action. You must work. Remember I said you could look out the window of the airplane and you see the fishing boat and you're studying your own reaction to seeing that fishing boat. You can understand your associations, how you see someone who looks like your mother and you hated your mother, and you can say, the reason I hated that woman because she simply looked like my mother whom I hated. You understand that, see? You feel guilty, over hating your parents? Don't feel guilty about it, just see it as a fact. You still want to be a person who hates your mother and hates your parents. That's part of your false eye structure. If you will do what you can do, and you can always start to do these elementary things of sticking with a source of truth. If you do that, you can do that. If you will do that, that is the beginning of choosing life, of choosing a new kind of life which you don't know nothing about. All you knew is the old ways. Now I've given you the instructions. You're going to follow them. I encourage you to do so for your sake. Two-part question to you ladies. How many of you ladies feel more safe when you're with a man? How many of you ladies feel less safe when you're with a man? That's it. Just think about it a little bit, ladies, and see when you're sitting home lonely, watching television, and there's no man around, just think of some of the men you've had in your past life, and look at that television set and say, you're okay for now. You know, don't break your heart over a man. All right, we're going to proceed a little different this morning. I'm going to talk very briefly, then we'll have a few other things. Now, I want to give you some advice. How many of you are tense? How many of you don't know what to do with yourself? How many of you are batty? What I'm going to tell you will knock out a lot of this tension and nervousness and compulsion that you have. You'll see. Here it is. Never, never, never again give advice to someone unless A, he asks for it, B, he follows your advice. This obviously doesn't apply to children. It applies to people who have reached, well, nature says about the late teens or early 20s, nature says, you've ran into this yourself. You're on your own now, right? When a person gets that age, put out of the air, 18, 22, something like that, nature says, you're on your own. Now, how many of you like to give advice? How many of you are so loaded with wisdom and guidance and compassion for the lost of the world that you want to go around telling people how to live? All right. Now look, I know what you're thinking. You say, well, I don't go around telling people how to live. You'd like to. I tell you, see, you don't know your mind. I'll probe a secret of your mind. How many of you are lost? All raise your hand. Now, if you're lost, you have to try to convince yourself that you're not. Therefore, you're very trying to convince yourself that you're right and the other person is wrong is giving them advice, and you always give them wrong advice. How many times have we gone over the advice that you give people by the expression on your face, by the manner in which you walk into this room, by your sound asleep behavior? The average person in this earth doesn't have an ounce of brains about anything. They're not awake inwardly or to the outer world. I'll give you a perfect example of it. Ellen, you were walking in back of me. You might have observed it. When I was coming down the street, coming up this other church down here, a middle-aged lady was getting ready to cross the street. Well, the decision, my part decision, was to stop and gesture her to cross. So she was standing there. The minute I made the decision, and I was still a little ways back up the street, I started and I put the hand up. You always put yourself in the other person's place. If you go like that, they can't see it. It's below the line of vision. But I deliberately put my hand right as close as I could to the windshield and up high so she could see it. And as I drove toward her, up to her, you try to be efficient. Because if she could see my hand earlier, she could start walking, and then she would be across and I'd be, right? Efficient in human relation. I started going like that, to let her know that I had made a decision that she could cross, she wasn't going to hit. I went like that until I actually had to stop the car right where she was. You know why? She's lost. She's going to a place where she's told she's God's child. She's going to a place where she's being lied to. And she doesn't even know how lost she is. People are in a daze. They're like that. Even the simplest thing of giving her directions, miss, it's all right, cross. She didn't see it till I had to stop, and she was about that far. Finally, she saw it, and she walked. And I know when she started walking across, she was still in a daze. She had just seen the signal and reacted mechanically. A little flash went through her mind, it's okay to cross, and so you went across. You think that's isolated? That was her evidence of being asleep, of not being alert. And look, sit up, stand up, look around. I told you be visually, physically alert at least. I sit here all the time and I see you sitting out there and you're going like that. I know you're not here. You're going like that. You're off somewhere. Your nature, your state is your advice to the world, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself for what you're telling people. You're telling them that this is right, this is the way to be, because you say this is the way I am. Therefore, my gloom and my depression and my egotistical know-it-all must be right. If you would stop giving the world bad advice, or equally, you can start either place, stop giving it to other people and stop giving it to yourself, you'd leave this marvelous empty space that we've talked about so often. Leave a space for the kingdom within instead of your treacherous thoughts and your sound asleep behavior. Unless you make up your mind that you're going to bear the agony of hearing the truth, you are going to die the way you lived, asleep and sick. Take it or leave it. That lady crossing the street, she'll never come here. Neither will her husband or her brother or her neighbors. You've said that you've come here for a different purpose than you've gone to any other place. The truth is given to you, but you won't take it. You won't break down. Did you hear what I said? You won't break down because you're holding yourself together with your thoughts and your vanities, and you know it all. Any of you ever fall away from this class or go away and don't come back, I have described you perfectly. You had better get over your idea once and for all that truth is sweet. That's what you want to believe, and you yourself call it sweet according to your own false ideas of your own rightness, of your own sweetness. Heaven help this earth if this 1 ounce of true sweetness, the sweetness of reality, ever left this earth. Don't you know that human beings are animals? That sleeping woman crossing the street is the cause of every agony on this earth. She is a part of it. And if you're equally asleep in your own ways, which you are a cause of it. And you don't feel ashamed at all because you don't see it. When you lean psychologically, spiritually, onto another human being without a wish to learn from that person, when you simply lean because it's your habit of leaning and you don't want to lean in order to just be able to learn how to stand by yourself, when you do that, you're living like an animal. Now you stop giving yourself advice, wrong advice. You stop fighting for your continued doses of poison, mental poison. Now watch. I'm going to watch some of you. You, for example. I'm going to watch some of you. There, I told you the truth. And watch. Nothing will change. You'll be just as... Look, I know you've got a bucket of tears ready to go out in your eyes all the time, aren't you? You're ready to break down at any minute if you get touched in the wrong place. I'll tell you what I'm going to do this morning. I'm going to say goodbye to all of you and let you prove whether it's invalid or not. You understand that? I'll say goodbye to all of you. Those to whom it doesn't apply, prove it to me. You think I'm sweet? One of the greatest, I'll go even further than that. One of the greatest pleasures of my life, if it came naturally, I can't do it, was to walk out of here, not come back again, and not give you a single talk, not write another book for you. It'd be so easy for me. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get it, and you're going to get it hard. And then I sit back and look at you as a class, as a group, and see which one of you want to follow the truth.